Hi, and welcome to the Palaver Project, a podcast where words are never wasted, no matter how aimless, pointless, or random it may seem to be. Just like real life, folks, and just like real life, people get busy. I'm Michael Rivera, and it's good to be back, everybody. I'm so sorry for the last 2 weeks not being around, and uploading a podcast, uploading an episode. It so much happened at once. There were a lot of things that were happening at home, at work, and really also with the podcast itself that I got entangled with so many things that I wasn't able to carve out the time to find a quiet spot and do a podcast. As you know, I am a family man. I have kids, and I have a lot of responsibilities at home, and the responsibilities come first, and the responsibilities were great and many, and so I couldn't just sit down at 10 in the evening after everything's all said and done and record a podcast, edit the podcast, and upload the podcast all by my lonesome. It's been really interesting to doing the solo podcast, being an indie podcaster. And it's something that I like doing. I like the challenge. But I wasn't able to muster an episode or get a guest, really. A lot of my guests are friends, people I know, acquaintances, colleagues. So that has to kind of change, I think. I need to go ahead and expand my horizons, but that takes time. Of course, I have to go out there and send messages out to people and see if they're interested in doing a conversation on podcast. Not everybody wants to talk on a podcast. Oh God, I learned that the hard way. So I have to go out there and look. So part of doing this whole thing solo, being the indie podcaster guy, I need to go and try to get guests. So that's gonna have to happen more and more down the road, or else I'll have to go do just solo talks, which I could rant and rave. But after last episode, it was really driven by my rhetoric, and seeing the downloads on that. Well, it wasn't as good as I had hoped it would be. And then plus Facebook. So when I ever have a topic where I really wanted to share, I advertise. So I advertise on all the social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's like the holy trinity right now of social media. So what I would do is I would put down a couple of bucks, 20 to 30, and post the advertisement. And this is not really so inside baseball. Everybody who does podcasting knows about advertising and how to advertise and what they have to spend to advertise if they're not just posting a bunch of stuff randomly and hashtagging a bunch of people, a bunch of different topics to hopefully get people looking at their posts. Sometimes they have to expand and they have to pay advertisers. And so they pay Facebook and they pay Instagram. And I usually go Facebook and Instagram, and I split it, and I I boost the post. Now, Facebook doesn't just allow all advertisements to go through. It goes through a process. It gets checked for for any red flags. So mine was checked and reviewed, and it was denied. So I posted. I tried to post up for the last episode, which was called Inconvenient Truths of America. It was a play on the El Paso shooters manifesto, which was called An Inconvenient Truth. And in my way, it was my way, and I wanted to title it that, because I wanted to really talk about the real inconvenient truth, which is this rise of white nationalism and this culture, um, this unstable psychological culture that we're living in right now, and the fears and the anxiety for immigrants and for Hispanics living in America. I thought that the title was apropos to the context of the podcast, of the episode. So I submitted it using that title, and I believe that may have been the red flag. Facebook, ever so careful in their algorithm, must have flagged that title and said, nope, this cannot go through. I never did try to change the title because the title I felt was just right. It was on the nose. So I wasn't gonna mess with the title of the episode just to get that link and that post across. However, it did affect my numbers. The download numbers were not as good as I had hoped it would be. And so it did kind of cause a bit of discouragement after that episode. And the fact that it wasn't really super conversation based. It was meant to be, but it wasn't. I carried that episode. I really wanted to be more back and forth, but the people I wanted to be involved with that podcast couldn't be involved or chose not to be involved. So it kind of sucks when you're doing podcasts with friends, because when you're doing podcasts with friends or colleagues, they're not as committed as you are. And I think I talked about this in my therapy and tirades episode, where, I was doing the podcast with a bunch of friends and they're not as committed as I was. It's just they want to just shoot the breeze and drink a couple of beers and that's that. But for me, it's I take it in a more professional. I'm trying to play professional here. Maybe I'm not professional, but I'm trying to play professional because it's a skill I want to get better and better at. And so to do that, I need people around me who want to do the same. And so, long story short though, I couldn't find the people I wanted to talk about this. So it is what it is. And I still churned out an episode. I thought I'd hit the points. I wish I could have gone longer in more of a conversation base, but it wasn't to be. And so the downloads were what they were. Then also just the duties of, at home, that comes first. Family always comes first. And I wasn't able to find the time to do what I wanted to do. So the other day, I was talking to my wife, and we were getting some of financial things in order, and I sat with her over a cup of coffee, and I told her, look, you've known me for this long. I am a guy who constantly is thinking about his mortality and what he's going to leave once he's gone from this world. And I had a lot of goals, and I'm looking at that list, and I haven't achieved as much as I have wanted to. So I need to get serious about things and get stuff done. And I've always been there for them, for the family, but always put them first and make sure that they have what they wanted and what they needed. Now it's time for me to get the chance to get stuff done. And little by little, I've been amassing equipment to be able to do the podcast. But no matter what the money and equipment is, it's about time. If you don't have the time to do it, then you're never going to do it. So I need the time to sit down and make things happen. So it seemed like she understood, but weekend kind of rolls in, and I'm taking care of things. I've got invited to a family gathering, and family gatherings are like essentials. Like I have to go to these things because it's such a mortality is such a big thing right now, and not all of us are in the best of health, myself included. And it's something that was beseeched to me by family members to do. And so I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to be there for the family. As you know, it's funny because I don't think really people don't get the time that you're putting into something, how precious that is. We take time so so lightly. It's ridiculous. It's almost like wasting food. You know, when you see food thrown into the trash can, which I'm a guy who hates that. I hate it when you go to a restaurant and you order this meal and it's expensive as hell, and you're eating this food, and there's just that bit of hash brown or that bit of sausage that you can't finish of that like, you know, super grand slam breakfast that you're getting, and you discard it, you leave it. You don't even put it in a to-go box. You're just leaving it there for the waiters to pick up and throw away. And to me, what a freaking waste, right? Or that burger you couldn't finish, or the fries you leave in the bottom of the box. It's like, what the hell, dude? You just spent like 10 or more dollars on this fucking meal, and you're wasting it. You're throwing it away. You just threw away money, basically. Not only that, you wasted something that people probably wanted and needed. You know, there's people who are out there who don't have that kind of luxury to have that food, and you're tossing it away like garbage. That's how I feel with time. I feel like if you're not using your time wisely and you're wasting your time, it's like it's garbage. It's like you're treating it as garbage. You're treating your time as garbage, and then when it's all said and done and you're in near death's door and you're like, oh, what have I done with my life? Well, dude, what did you do with your time? You wasted your time because you were just fucking around, messing around. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy who lives with regret because I did not utilize my time to the best to get my goals done. And I'm not talking about, being a big money maker in real estate. If my brothers are listening, you should have finished real estate. It's like, it wasn't my thing. I didn't like it. So screw you. Yeah, but you don't have the things you want now. Well, you know what? You get there when you get there. And I'm gotten there, and I'm happy with what the things I have. But I'm not talking about possessions because, geez, I already have enough stuff. I just need to slowly liquidate that stuff because I don't take any of that with me. I live for memories. I live for experiences. I live for achievements. And the achievement that I have not yet achieved, the thing that I have worked on for decades, but have never, okay, maybe not decades, I'm not that old, but for years, since high school, and I haven't actually took my shot on it, is writing. Writing. As you could tell through the episodes and through the cadence of my voice right now, is that I'm a guy who, over the years, as I got older, had to learn to develop a thick skin and have a stern countenance. Because I was a victim of bullying. I was bullied when I was a kid. I was a shy kid, and I was bullied for it. And I wasn't a rich kid. I did not have new stylish clothes. I was wearing like my uniform was blue sweats and a white turtleneck and a blue sweater, and that was it. That was what I was wearing to school because that, I would wear that, and I wasn't like I was somewhat like a husky kid. Well, maybe not husky, because when you think husky, you think fat. I wasn't fat, but I was maybe still kind of short. I hadn't grown, like, I had my growth spurt. So I was kind of like a short, husky kid, Um, I was bullied. I got bullied a lot for what I was wearing, for how I looked, for my nationality. How many times have I heard beaner in my life? It just a lot of things. And then I was a loner at school. I mean, friends could attest right now. I was a loner at school. I would, I just was a very shy kid, and I was just, like you show your shyness, it's like blood in the water for the sharks. So, bullied as a kid, a loner, all that stuff kind of, you start creating a shell, and you start creating a method to get through day by day. I mean, the bullying got so bad that this little Catholic boy would have to pray at night, every night, to not get bullied the next day. That's how bad it was for me. And the fact that, as you get older, you become in your teenage years, and you start liking girls, and you start trying to get better with girls. Like, you try to watch what you eat. You start taking care of yourself. You do your hair more. You wake up early so that you find the right outfit. You look at you make sure you're dressed the right way. Your hair's done right. You clean your face. You had your nails cut. You put lotion on, cologne. You're doing all these little things. Oh yeah, they're like, oh Michael, those are like things you should do all the time. Well, no shit, Sherlock. But as a kid, you're starting to learn this stuff. So you're really trying. And you're really trying, and you're like OCDing on this stuff. So that and to do that, and to do this in vain, because you're never really, girls aren't attracted to you, or you're not on their radar because you're still too shy, and you're still being bullied because kids are dumbasses, and they'll still be bullies to you. So you develop the shell, but you also have to have an outlet. You have to have an outlet because all that anger, all that emotion, all that sadness has to go somewhere. And if it stays inside and it's internalized and it's just festering, you're going to get yourself sick, which I did. Eventually, I did get sick. All the stress from the few friends that I did have and the drama that went through with them, I ended up getting sick. I ended up with type 1 diabetes, which was not something because I was overweight. I was not overweight. I was like 120 pounds and 5'8", which I am like right now. I'm like 130 something. So, I wasn't a fat kid. I sprouted. I grew up, and I was skinny, but there was the amount of stress, and my diet still wasn't great because I just didn't know. I wasn't educated in that. I mean, I ate well, but I also would snack and eat not so well when, I didn't think of how much carbs I was taking in at one time, because I thought I was, because I'm skinny. I was skinny, I'm okay, but that's not the case. And well, when I got diagnosed with diabetes at 17, it was a scary moment. It was a shocker. It's just like, oh, it's all this shit that you have to deal with. Now, I'll probably go more into diabetes in another episode. I know a couple of guys want to talk about it, and so hopefully that goes through, because I really would like to bring that onto the podcast. But depression, anxiety, OCD, the diabetes, all that stuff, it's a lot. It's a lot. So, and yes, I'm not self-diagnosed depression. I have depression. It was something that I went to a doctor and a psychologist, and they diagnosed me with depression. Mild. It wasn't severe, but there is depression in me, and it's something and anxiety as well. So these are things I had to deal with. And as a kid, I saw this, and I need creative outlet. I was always a drawer. I loved to draw, but I wasn't that great with drawing. I mean, I drew for the fun of it, but it wasn't something I was professionally getting better at. But something that I was trying to get better at was writing. And writing, I was something that I was doing more and more of, because there was a lot of anger and there was a lot of angst in me. And the way to get out of it, get that out, is to write, to put it on pen and paper, and to have my words out there for display. And then there's so much I wrote in between, oh, not in between, during class in high school, at home, in front of my computer, typing up stories, poems, lyrics to songs in my head, that kind of stuff. It was something to get out the emotion. I'm a reactionary writer, meaning that if I'm feeling some way, I have to get it out of me. It's like venom. It's like snake venom. Like I was just bitten by this viper, and I need to squeeze out the venom before it corrupts and pollutes and infects my soul. As anybody who deals with depression knows, the anger and the sadness continues to flow. You're never short that stuff. It continues to secrete out of you, despite your best effort to get it on paper and get it out there into the ether. Your body is really good to secrete to create the worst stuff, like, you know how phlegm and infections can grow in you, and pus and stuff, and like, man, you never knew your body can create so much of this bad stuff. Just like the feelings in you, the vitriol, it's so prevalent and flowing. So I've written for years. I write to this day. But when I finally got married and had a family and had goals set and direction, my writing changed. I wrote less of the dark and dreary, and I wrote more of I wrote more creatively, and I wrote more stories, more adventure, more fantasy. And there's difference. I tried writing in script. I tried writing in an outline format. I've tried writing in prose, writing in stanzas, almost like in poetry formats, like haikus. I definitely love haikus. I do haikus. I feel like with haikus, you have to be super disciplined to write in that 575 format, and I do that often. I still do that on Tumblr to this day. And then the short writing, the observationals, narratives, conversations, like dialogue. I try to write pieces here and there. And since junior year of high school, I had worked on a comic book superhero story that I ended up having about 230 pages by the time I graduated high school. I actually even submitted it in my senior exit portfolio, and they wouldn't even bat an eye to it. They didn't even look at my writing and say, hey, look, this guy's actually doing something impressive, and this should count to his final grade and his exit score. No, they didn't care. They just probably thought it was jargon from a madman, which I guess they're not too far off. But still, it's a lot of effort was put into it, and time has been really hard to kind of carve out now, with so much stuff I have on my plate. But I'm not getting any younger. And back to the mortality of it all. I am getting older. I'm reaching my 35th birthday. I would like to do something. I would like to accomplish something before my 35th birthday. And I feel like if I announce it, if I say it on the podcast, you, the Palaverers, the listeners, can hold me accountable for what I say and actually accomplishing this goal. I feel like this is a great platform. There was a reason I'm on the Palaver project, that we have this Palaver project going, and this is one. To show that my words, are not wasted. And so, my goal, and I'm announcing it now, before my 35th birthday, I will have published a book. That is the goal I present to you and to myself and to my family. I will finish and publish one of my stories by my 35th birthday. So therefore, I will have a title that I can be proud of. And not just a writer and a podcaster, but an author. I will be an author by the time I'm 35 years old. I kind of took a little bit of inspiration from another independent podcaster. There is a podcast that I had been listening to called Last Monday. It's a weight loss podcast from one of our fellow podcasters from the Podcast Junkie Discord channel. If you know what Discord is, it's kind of like it's where chat rooms went. And so this particular chat room is for independent podcasters and for fans of independent podcasting. This is a great place for people to talk with the creators of their favorite independent podcasts, and for also podcasters to collaborate, to share, and support each other. The Last Monday podcast is from Jessica, from the Podcast Junkie Discord channel, and 35-year-old mother of two. She is a high school teacher, and she is morbidly obese, and she has opted to get weight loss surgery done, and she's sharing her experience preparing for the operation, and is going to continue sharing her journey post-op, and as she loses the weight and keeps it gone. It's something she mentioned it in one of her first episodes. She felt that this would be a great way to hold herself accountable to keep the weight off by doing the podcast. And I thought that was such an ingenious way to motivate herself that I had to borrow it from her playbook and do the same here. Because like everybody else on that Discord channel, a lot of these folks are creative people. Creative, and they have the ambition and desire to get that creativity across whatever platform is available. And thank God for podcasts, that it's so readily available to share and to post. And so with this format, I want to be held accountable for something that, probably should have been done a long time ago. But now I need to do it. I need to get it done. And so this story is a story that was written a while back. And it's something that has never been finished, because I'll be honest, guys, I have a trouble finishing things. And maybe this has to do with the whole mortality thing. Seeing an end to something is hard for me. But I was listening to another podcast the other day, and they mentioned how they create stories, and how the way they go about creating a story, a 6 month it could be a 6 month long process or a year long process. How they start is imagining and writing down the ending first and working backwards. And I've heard this before, but it hit me that I never really just done it. I've never put it to practice. And so I went back to a story I was writing, a Western story with a mix of a little horror in it. I wrote this story with the hopes of it being a group collaboration, but as all my desired group collaborations go, it went nowhere. I just wrote it myself. So it was shelved. I went back to it and I put on Apple Music and I started listening to like old Western film like soundtracks. And I was trying to make the picture of what the last scene would be in my story. And I started writing it. I started writing it on my iPhone. I really started liking what I was seeing. And I liked the ending and it felt emotional. And I felt that I can end it with a lot of symbolism. And I was like, this symbolism is really good. I don't want this to go to waste. So I need to finish this. I need to fill in the gaps. I already have the beginning. I wrote 45 pages before I shelved it. I need to get this going. So I sat down one night and started working on it. And then I sat down another night and started working on it. And I started working on it further. And I'm now at 60 pages on my Western story. I'm not about to slow down. I really want to get this done. I have every intention to finish this project by January. I have so many things at my disposal. Now I have an iPhone. Back then when I was younger, iPhones weren't on my radar. And so I have it now. It's so easy to take notes on this thing. Any research I need to do, it's the tip of my hand, right here. It's just right here at my fingertips. It's so rarely available now. I don't have to be in front of a computer to do research. I could be on the go. I could be at work and doing research while I'm accomplishing the task at hand. I have music to... Back then, I used to have to sit in front of my computer in the dark, listening to my playlist, my burned CDs. You know, remember when you used to have the burned CDs? I used to have my playlist burned in CDs, and I used to put on my CDs on, or I just have my playlist on my computer, whether it be on LimeWire or Napster. And I would just play that and play my CDs and get lost in my imagination, in the dark recess of my soul and write stuff. You know, I have family now. I have kids. All I think of is Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. Like,
peace has cost you your strength. Victory has defeated you.
Success has cost him his strength. Victory has defeated him. I mean, it has. I mean, being a family man, I put that aside. I put the anger and angst. And really, like, a lot of that stuff is fuel for the fire. As a, I love listening to music. I listen to rock music and alternative and stuff. And I listen to metal and, I listen to all kinds of music. I mean, even now I listen to country and jazz and stuff like that. But, I'm all over the place, guys. Just like this podcast. But, when listening, like I listen to Linkin Park or Korn, and a lot of these guys, especially Korn, Jonathan Davis, I'll use that as a great example. They're actually playing tonight. As I'm recording this, they're playing tonight here in San Diego, Chula Vista. And Jonathan Davis is a great example. This guy, his earlier work, Korn's earlier work was driven by a lot of that fuel, a lot of that venom. But as they got more successful, their work felt more produced and less off the cuff or on the fly or guttural. It didn't feel like it was coming from a darkness within. It felt more like going through the motions. Of course, He's gotten a lot more discipline in his craft, and the music that's created has gotten a lot, like the sound has gotten a lot more inventive. The lyrics itself has not been as inspired as the same way. It feels like it's almost rehashed, but it doesn't make me less of a fan. I could just point that out. I can critique it in a way. It's almost like a wrestling fan where like I'm a fan of wrestling, but I can critique it off, like a lot of it. And I know Jonathan Davis, if he ever heard this, he'd be like a big fuck you. But still, I think it's true. I mean, I think with Linkin Park too, you could definitely tell with Linkin Park after Meteora how much he changed and went from one thing to the next. I mean, that whole he abandoned that grunge or that rough part of him for a more produced, finite, polished. That's the word. A more polished product. And it hurt. It hurt him overall because I stopped being a Linkin Park fan. So, I mean, rest in peace, Chester. But the last album was not my jam. And I feel with a writer too, you can get like that as well. You can write from the gut and from the core, and then something could happen in your life where you're softening up. Things have gotten better. You're not writing out of a reactionary way. Your writing will change. Maybe you write for a more whimsical approach. Maybe you write from a more kid-friendly approach if you have kids. It depends on what stage of your life you're at, how you write. For those who read my Tumblr, I dive into the dark once in a while. That's why the posts from Tumblr are far between. So I just recently posted one up, and that one, a lot of it is borrowed from what I feel. And what I feel is genuine, it's me, and I know I create a character, like in that story I wrote on Tumblr, and I hope you read it, about a guy who feels like he's been shunned from his workspace, from his work group, his work friends, his colleagues, because of just simply feeling bad. He's feeling really bad, and his countenance has changed. He's become more stern, and instead of someone going out to reach out to him, they are distancing themselves because they are afraid of what he's showing, of what he's expressing. They're not out there looking to help. Unlike him, who sees somebody down in the dumps or has an inquiry or a question, a quandary, a concern, and the main character helps. Out of the goodness of his heart, he helps. I feel like the worst type of people are those who do not pick up on that. I in that story, I really wanted the readers to see that, to negate those who have befriended you or have done kind to you after the fact, it's an emotional drain to that person. It truly becomes one-sided as like one guy like seeks to help, receives, the guy who seeks help, the people who seek help, they receive it and then they move on because they're rehabilitated, they're fine, they're good, right? But they forget about the guy who helps them. This has happened so much. I mean, even work right now at the mid-30s, it feels like high school again. Because I could give you a story in high school where I helped this guy out. These two guys like this one girl. I try not to take sides. I try to help each guy out through the process. And we really want to find out who this girl really likes. Because and make sure that the peace between the friends are okay. Needless to say, it all works out. The friend goes with the girl. The other friend makes peace with the other friend. All is well. But by the end of that year, I am no longer anybody's friend. Why? Because they have succeeded in what they want, what they needed. They got their goal. So now they are preoccupied with that. And they forget about the friend who facilitated everything, or gave them guidance, or stayed up and listened to them cry and rant and complain, or spill their guts and their feelings to them. How many hours I have spent talking to a friend to make them feel better, only to lose a piece of myself in the process. Because it's not just something where you in one ear out the other. You're giving something of yourself when you're listening to people, and you're giving your advice, and you're giving your time, you're giving your soul to them to help people you're giving a piece of your soul to those people you help without anything to replace or reward you. And there lies the flaw of the character, myself, and the character in the story. Because he's expected to be rewarded, and that simply isn't why you do the things you do. You do it out of the kindness of your heart. But come on, guys, the reality is we're not like that. We give a little, we get a little. We're humans. It's not as picture perfect. People want to live under that dictum, but it's not true. Okay? He's still, and still, it does not justify being shunned without cause. If suddenly everybody's at a better place, and yet they fail to see that the person who helped them get to that better place is not at that good place, instead of going out of their way to help that guy out, they just live in their bubble cheerfully. I mean, ultimately, these people that I help have learned nothing from the gift of kindness because they have not paid it forward. A friend of mine, Mary, he had a really good line. Sorry, I don't know the where, but she shared it to me when I was talking to her about this. Blessed are those who give without remembering and receive without forgetting. But the truth is that many people do forget. And so I wrote that. A story on there out of a reaction to feeling that I feel like I help people try to find a footing or something to preoccupy themselves, or I give them advice, or I give them the time out of my life for conversation because I feel like they're maybe in a tough place. I give them emotional support. I'm there for them. I've saved people from themselves, and ultimately to feel like I'm ostracized. I don't deserve this, right? But like Clint Eastwood said in Unforgiven,
Deserves got nothing to do with it.
But I write, so that's what I do. I write my feelings out, and I put them in stories so I can get it across to those who need to hear it. And for those who are out of the loop, they get a good story out of it. They get a good, it's like art, guys. Wherever way you see it, you can get something out of it. If you're of that observational mind, you're looking and you're decoding what made that artist take that stroke? What made that writer choose those words? It's all art. Such is life. So, the title of today's episode was Wrangling with Writer's Block, and I feel like I need to really kind of cover what writer's block is. So let's go to Google, everybody. Google, our friend Google. What is writer's block? Well, straight from Wikipedia, writer's block is a condition primarily associated with writing in which an author loses the ability to produce new work or experiences a creative slowdown. The condition ranges from difficulty in coming up with original ideas to being unable to produce a work for years. So, writer's block. Who here is a writer? Who here among the listeners write from time to time? Thoughts, opinions, stories, poetry. I have never had a full-fledged writer's block where I can just stop writing. I've always written something, but I have experienced writer's block where I cannot grow a story, where I've reached the point where my over-analytical mind reaches an impasse to where the story's going and how I can make the story sound believable or credible or sensible. I reached a lot of blocks, and I stop and I shelve it, and I go on to the next thing, because my obsessive compulsive, I go from one topic to the next because something else catches my eye, and I start going on to that, leaving the other one unfinished. So I have a lot of unfinished work. So the matter of dealing with this for myself is trying to stay focused on this work and to hit it as hard as I can, as much as I can, within that time frame that I have that focus. And I feel like this platform here, the podcast platform, is going to be a way to keep me focused on it. That's why I came back. 2 weeks of a hiatus was too much. It felt like I was failing myself. I agreed to do this podcast. I'm going to do this podcast. I'm going to put in the effort. I bought the stuff to do the podcast. I'm going to do a podcast. I'm not just going to stop and put things on the table because it's just the flavor of the month. No. Like I said in the beginning of this podcast, it's a place where words are never wasted, and I'm going to prove it. I'm going to prove it with my story. I'm going to write the story. I'm going to finish the story, and I'm going to publish the story. Now, publishing has gotten a lot easier thanks to Amazon. A friend of the show, Daniel Smith, who we talked about, he's Alcatraz, by the way. That's the wrestling name. If you listen to the wrestling podcast, he was one of the guys who got me into backyard wrestling. Daniel Smith, he wrote a story for his son, and it's actually still available on Amazon. It's called Super Jason. It's on Amazon. I'll have the link on the show notes. And he just wrote it, and I found this on his Facebook timeline one day, and I had to ask him, what inspired him to do it? And I guess he was inspired by his kids. His kids got to writing a story, and they drew it. Drew the illustrations, and he helped finish writing it, and he put it up on Amazon. And it's so cool. I'm really happy he was able to do this. He's actually a really creative guy. He actually is into 3D printing as well, which I hope I get him on there. I get him to do that one day, to get on the podcast and do an episode on that. But we'll see. So he did it through Kindle Direct Publishing. So it goes on Kindle, and anybody who has a Kindle can download it and purchase it, download it, and I think you get a good percent of it. I mean, as royalties, and depends on how much you sign up for and stuff. So I haven't really gone too in depth in it, but the fact that he did it made me feel like, you know what, I just need to get up and do it. I need to self-publish. I need to get this done. I need to make it happen. If not just for myself, but for my kids, to know that if you have a goal, see it through, and don't give up. Don't ever give up. So, writer's block. I mean, yeah, writer's block. The only thing that's blocking me is myself now. Think about it. I mean, time. I have to be able to make time. And so I need to find a quiet place with music to do this, because if you're distracted with all the 100 things that you have to do as a dad, as a parent, it's rough. So I have to look into finding more time. And I've talked to my significant other, and I told her I need to be able to find the time to do this. I need to get this done. I've taken care of our financial situations all throughout this time. I've given so much of myself. Not only, and I feel like this is. I think it's deserving that I find the time to do this. So that's what's I need to get off my chest. I've started to write a story. I'm 60 pages in. I will keep you guys abreast to the writing process. As I keep on going through this, I'm going to keep you guys informed every step of the way. You're going to keep me honest to it. And we'll see in terms of publishing how I approach it. Whether I just self-publish through Kindle Direct, or if I reach out to a publisher and actually get some hardcovers done, or paperbacks. At this point, I mean, hardcovers would be awesome, but paperback, as long as a book is published, a physical copy is published, yeah, I would feel pretty good about myself right there. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Palaver Project. This was a wild one, a random one, but that's life, man. Life is random. So is this podcast. For Michael Rivera, hey, wait, that's me. This has been the Palaver Project. As you were.